بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Thank you for everyone who is joining today. Inshallah, today we'll be starting the course for the text Al-MUQADDIMAH Al-JAZARIYYah, or sometimes just simply referred to as Al-Jazariyyah, by the famous Sheikh Muhammad ibn al-Jazari rahimahullah ta'ala. To begin today, we will first look at a short biography of Imam ibn al-Jazari. Imam ibn al-Jazari rahimahullah was born in the 8th Islamic century, 751, and he was born and raised in Damascus, Syria. However, he used to travel throughout many different cities in the Islamic world at the time, throughout Turkey and Egypt and other parts of the land. And during his travels, he read to many different shuyukh and collected many different ijazat. And he is considered to be the most influential Quran scholar, or one of the most influential Quran scholars of all time. One of the most famous books that Imam Ibn al-Jazari rahimahullah ta'ala wrote is the book An-Nashru fil Qira'at al-Ashri. Previous or prior to Ibn al-Jazari, the Ummah was reading with 7 canonical qira'at. But then Ibn al-Jazari, through his research and through his asanid and through his reciting to many different shuyukh, he added 3 more qira'at to the canon. He added Abu Ja'far, Yaqub al-Hadrami, as well as Khalaf al-Ashir, and he brought the total number of qira'at up to 10 qira'at. And in his book An-Nashru fil Qira'at al-Ashri, he combined many different chains of narration for all of the different qira'at, and this is perhaps the most relied upon book for qira'at in the modern day. Along with this book, Ibn al-Jazari, along with the book An-Nashru fil Qira'at al-Ashri, Ibn al-Jazari wrote a poem called Tayyibatul Nashri. He organized the contents of his books in a poem called Tayyibatul Nashri. And in the beginning of Tayyibatul Nashri, he put an introduction where he explained the fundamental rules of tajweed that everyone should know before they read the Quran. After he finished writing this very big poem, he decided that this introduction was so important and was so useful, he was going to write it as a separate poem by itself, and he was going to expand on it and make it bigger. And so he took the introduction of his book, Tayyibatul Nashri, and he wrote what is called Al-Muqaddimatu fi Ilm al-Tajweed, or Al-Muqaddimatu fi ma yajibu ala qari al-Qur'ani an ya'lamahu. The introduction for the necessary things that the reciter of Quran must know, and that is the poem that we have with us now today. And this Muqaddimah is considered the basis for all Tajweed studies for everyone who wants to get into the knowledge of Tajweed, because it covers all of the fundamental aspects of Tajweed that a person should know. So here is a slight breakdown of the contents of the poem. Verses 1 to 8 will just be the introduction of him explaining how the poem is laid out. And then verses 9 to 26, which we will be taking today, cover the makharij of the huruf and the sifat of the huruf as well. The makharij are the places where the letters come out from, the points of articulation. The sifat are the attributes of the letters. What makes each letter different from the other one is the sifat that it has. Then from verses 27 to 61, he actually covers a variety of different rules, such as tafkhim and tarqiq, and how to pronounce ra, and how to avoid mispronouncing certain letters. Now, so from verses 27 to 51, he covers tajweed of various rules. And then from verses 52 to 61, he covers the rasm of ra in the Quran. And then also from verses 62 to 72, he covers various tajweed rules, such as rules of nun sakina and rules of med and rules of al-waqf wal-ibtida. And then in the last portion of the poem, verses 73 to 79, he covers rasm al-mushaf, such as words that are written together or written separately, and also how the ta at the end of feminine words is written in the Quran. And then the last few verses, he talks about starting the word with Hamzat al-Wasl and also ending off on the end of a word when you stop, how you're allowed to stop. And it should be noticed that the official number of verses is 107 verses. However, later on, some scholars added 2 more verses to the end of the poem just to make it sound more complete. And so it's usually numbered at 109. But the number of verses that Ibn al-Jazari wrote is 107. So today, inshallah, we're going to just cover from verses 9 to 26, which is Makharij al-Huruf was-Sifati. To begin, we will take the introduction of Ibn al-Jazari and a brief explanation of what it means. Ibn al-Jazari starts off by saying, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. يقول راجي عفو رب سامعي محمد بن الجزري الشافعي. He begins by saying, يقول راجي, the one who desires says, the one who desires the forgiveness of his Lord who hears a lot, his Lord who hears everything. Muhammad ibn al-Jazari al-Shafi'i, he names himself as Muhammad ibn al-Jazari al-Shafi'i. Alhamdulillahi wa sallallahu ala nabiyyihi wa mustafahu Muhammadin wa alihi wa sahbihi wa muqri'il Qur'ani ma' muhibbihi. He gives the salutations and praise to Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam and starts off by saying Alhamdulillah. And now he gets into the introduction when he says, وَبَعْدُ إِنَّ هَذِهِ مُقَدِّمَةٌ. To proceed, this is the introduction. فِيمَا عَلَى قَارِئِهِ أَنْ يَعْلَمَهُ. That it is obligatory for the person who recites Quran to know. إذ واجب عليهم محتم قبل الشروع أولا أن يعلموا. It is incumbent, it is obligatory upon them. Before they set out to recite, they have to know these things. What are these things that they must know? مخارج الحروف والصفات. They have to know the makharij of the letters, and they have to know the sifat of the letters. لِيَلْفِظُوا بِأَفْصَحِ اللُّغَاتِ. So that they can pronounce the words with the most eloquent and the most clear of languages, which is the language of Arabic. مُحَرِّرِ التَّجْوِيدِ وَالْمَوَاقِفِ وَمَا الَّذِي رُسِمَ فِي الْمَصَاحِفِ. While they are those who perfect tajweed, and they also must know the places to stop in the Quran, and they also must know how certain words are written in the Quran, what the spelling of certain words is in the Mus'haf or the Uthmanic Mus'hafs. مِن كُلِّ مَقْطُوعٍ وَمَوْصُولٍ بِهَا. They have to know which words are written broken, مَقْطُوعٍ, they're written separately as 2 words, وَمَوْصُولٍ بِهَا, and they have to know which words are written together as 1 word inside the Mus'haf. وَتَاءِ أُنْثَى لَمْ تَكُنْ تُكْتَبْ بِهَا. And they also have to know where the ta of feminine, the ta added to the end of feminine words, they have to know the places where it is written as a ha, as a ta marbuta, so they know how to stop on that word. So here Ibn al-Jazari rahimahullah, he just gives us a brief outline of what the poem is going to cover. The main things are the makharij of the huruf and the sifat, and then the waqf and ibtida, and then the rasm of the mushaf, which will be in the later chapters. To begin, we will now look at the makharij of the huruf, the 17 makharij of the letters, the 17 places where the Arabic letters come out of. Ibn al-Jazari starts off under Babu Makharij al-Huruf, the chapter on the places of articulation for the letters. Makharij al-Hurufi 17. على الذي يختاره من اختبر. He says the places where the letters come out from are 17. And this is according to the predominant opinion. There is another opinion, and that's the opinion of Sibawayh, rahimahullah, which says the makharij are only 16. And yet there's another opinion, the opinion of Al-Farra, rahimahullah, which says the makharij are only 14. But the opinion that Ibn al-Jazari picks here is that the makharij are 17, according to those who are experienced, according to the choice made by those who are experienced in this. And this is also the choice of Khalil ibn Ahmad al-Farahidi, who is considered the grandfather of Nahu. His choice is that there are 17 makhraj for the letters. So now Ibn al-Jazari is going to list all 17 of them for us, and we're going to go through them one by one. So we're going to take approximately half of them now, where he says, للجوف آليف وأختها وهي حروف مد للهواء تنتهي. He says the jawf is the first makhraj. This is makhraj number 1. It has alif and also the two sisters of alif, which are wahi حروف مد, the other letters of mad. للهواء تنتهي. The letters of mad go to the end of your breath. You just say u, e. They just continue along with your breath. So the 3 letters of mad, u, e, all 3 of them belong to the makhraj of al-jawf. Then we go on to the second makhraj. ثم لأقصى الحلق همز هاء. At the bottom of the throat, we have the letters hams and ha. Makhraj number 3. وَمِنْ وَسَطِهِ فَعَيْنٌ حَاءُ. The middle of the halq, the middle of the throat, has ayn and ha. Now we're on to makhraj number 4. أَدْنَاهُ غَيْنٌ خَاؤُهَا. At the top of the throat, closest to the top of the mouth, close to where the tongue is, we have the letters ghain and kha. And these are the 6 throat letters: hamza ha, ayn ha, ghain kha. These 6 letters are divided over 3 makhrajs in the throat. Now we're going to leave the throat and go to the tongue, and he says, وَالْقَافُ أَقْصَى اللِّسَانِ فَوْقُ. The qaf belongs to the very bottom part of the tongue, slightly above the throat. ثُمَّ الْكَافُ. And then above that slightly, we have the kaf. Above the kaf slightly, the back of the tongue, slightly above the throat is where the kaf comes from. أَسْفَالُ وَالْوَسْطُ فَجِيمُ الشِّينُ يَا. In the middle of the tongue, we have jim, sheen, and ya. Then we have وَالضَّادُ مِنْ حَافَاتِهِ إِذْ وَالِيَا لَضْرَاسَ مِنْ أَيْسَارَ أَوْ يُمْنَاهَا. And the dad comes from the 2 sides of the tongue when they're pushing up against the side molars, the inside teeth at the side of your mouth. And you can either push your tongue to the left side or to the right side. Both are correct. And the most correct opinion is that when you pronounce dad, the sides of your tongue are pushing up against both the left and right side of your mouth, where your teeth are. وَاللَّامُ أَدْنَاهَا لِمُنْتَهَاهَا. And the lam is at the very edge of the side of the tongues, as well as the tip of it, to the very tip of the tongue. And we'll show you some pictures of that just now. Then وَالنُّونُ مِنْ طَرَفِهِ تَحْتُ جَعَلُوا. The noon is also from the tip of the tongue, slightly below where the lam is. وَالرَّا يُدَانِيهِ لِظَهْرٍ أَدْخَالُوا. And then the ra is very close to where the noon is from, slightly behind, and we'll explain that just now, from where the noon is. So now we'll look at a diagram for each of the makhrajis that Ibn al-Jazari just described. So the first 6 we were talking about is the huruf al-halq. We said the jawf, the huruf al-mad, is just the open space coming out of your mouth, but the rest of the huruf actually have to rely on different parts of the mouth to make the sound. So at the bottom of the throat, we have hamza and ha. Middle of the throat, ayn and ha. Top of the throat, ghayn and kha. Adna al-halq is the top, wasat al-halq is the middle, aqsa al-halq is the bottom. Then we look at how the qaf is created. Aqsa al-lisani. We see the back of the tongue here, slightly above the throat, is going up and it's hitting the back of the mouth, almost where the throat is. And whenever we want to know what the makhraj of a letter is in Arabic, we put sukoon on the letter and then we put a haraka before it. So let's put a sukoon on the qaf and a fatha before it, we get aq, aq. When you say aq, you can feel your tongue hitting this back region. Very close to this is the letter kaf, kaf. It's also hitting at the top of the mouth, but it's slightly more forward than where the qaf was. The qaf was more back, the kaf is more in front. Same thing, if I put a sukoon and I put a fatha before it, I get the letter ek, ek, right? That's the sound that is created. The next letter we're going to look at is Jim, from the middle of the tongue. Aj, uj, ij. The middle of the tongue is going up and hitting the top of the mouth. And the Jim has two other people with it who come from roughly the same place. That is the letter Sheen, Ish, Ish. But the Sheen is also using air passing up from the teeth to create its sound as well, which we're going to take in the Sifat al-Huruf. But the tongue is going to roughly the same place as the Jim was going. It's going up and hitting where the middle is. And then the final one that shares the makhraj is the letter Ya, but not the madya, not the letter E. That's a med. We're talking about Ya, Ya, or Ay, Ay. That's using the middle of the tongue and the top palate to create sound. So here are all three of them compared side by side, because Ibn al-Jazari puts them all in one makhraj. He says they all come from the middle of the tongue and the top of the mouth. Jim is very high up, Sheen is very close, and Ya is also similarly close to them, but slightly lower. The next letter we're going to look at is one of the most difficult letters in the Arabic language, and is also one of the most unique letters, which is the letter Bad. And this is actually using multiple parts of the mouth to create sound. So what's happening is that the tongue is going up and the sides of the tongue are pushing up against these teeth. You see where the blue squares are? The sides of the tongue should be pushing up against these teeth at the top of your mouth. And then the tip of the tongue is pushing up against these front teeth. Right? We don't want to give any qalqala to it. It gets pushed up against the top of the mouth in this way, and the sound gets muted. And there's a slight cavity created as well. Right? We push against these side molars here, as well as the front teeth with the tip of our tongue. This is how a bod should be pronounced. We want to avoid our tongue slipping forward and touching the edge of our teeth. If our tongue touches our teeth, we mistakenly pronounce al-va. We don't want to say ilv or al-valin. The reason that sound was created was because my teeth were touching the edge of my tongue was touching the edge of my teeth. The tongue should not come anywhere near the edge of the teeth when pronouncing the bod. If you cannot push your tongue against both sides, it's permissible to just push it against one side, the right side or the left side. Both are also correct in pronunciation. Again, this is what it looks like when your tongue is being pressed against these parts of your mouth. The tip of the tongue here is getting pushed up against these teeth at the top of your mouth, and the sides of your tongue are being pushed up against these molars at the side, the large teeth at the side. ولا الضالين. Next, we're moving on to the letter Lam, which is created by taking the tip of the tongue and pushing it up inside against where the gum line is, behind the top teeth. The tongue is not touching the teeth, it's touching this meaty part at the top of the roof of the mouth. Il, that's the tip of the tongue and the inside cavity of the mouth at the top. Closely related to the Lam is the Noon. It comes from essentially the same place. I'm taking the tip of my tongue and I'm pushing it up against the inside of my mouth right behind the top teeth. But I'm also adding air through my nose. So Noon has two parts. It has a mouth part and it has a nose part. In. If I push my tongue up against the top of my mouth, but I plug my nose, I take my hand and I plug my nose and I try and pronounce N, it's not going to come out. The air is going to come up and it's going to get blocked in the nose because the Noon needs a ghunna. An intrinsic sifa of Noon is the ghunna that comes along with it. Closely related to the Noon is the Ra. It also comes from a place very close to it. Ir, ar, ur. The tip of the tongue is hitting very close to where the Noon was, at the top of the mouth, behind the top teeth. Now, because these three letters, Lam, Noon, and Ra, all come from very close places in the mouth, some scholars have said they all come from the same place and there's no difference between their makhraj. And that's the opinion of Al-Farra. He says they all have the same makhraj. But Ibn al-Jazari says they each have a distinct makhraj. Lam is supposed to be the farthest back, and then Noon, and then Ra is supposed to be the closest to the front of the mouth, according to what Ibn al-Jazari rahimahullah has said in his poem. طيب. Now we're going to go on to the next set of letters, where he says, وَالطَّاءُ وَالدَّالُ وَتَا مِنْهُ وَمِنْ عُلْيَ الثَّنَايَا وَالصَّفِيرُ مُسْتَكِنْ مِنْهُ وَمِنْ فَوْقِ الثَّنَايَا السُّفْلَى. He says the letters Ta, Dal, and Ta come from minhu, meaning from the tip of the tongue, wa min ulya thanaya, the tip of the tongue and the roots of the top front teeth. Thanaya are your two front teeth at the top. Ulya meaning the roots. So the tip of your tongue is going to touch the roots of your top teeth, and we'll show you a diagram just now. And then was-safiru, the letters of safir. And you can write in your notes that the letters of safir are sad, sin, and zay. Sad, sin, and zay. Those three letters all come from mustakin minhu wa min fawqi thanaya sufla. They are residing also from the tip of the tongue, minhu wa min fawqi thanaya sufla, and from the top or the edge of the bottom teeth. Your two bottom teeth, your two front bottom teeth, the tongue is going to touch the edge of them when I say is, is. That is where the letters of Safir come from. Then he says, وَالضَّاءُ وَالذَّالُ وَثَا لِلْعُلْيَا مِنْ طَرَفَيْهِمَا. The letters Dha, Dhal, and Tha come from the top teeth as well, but from the edge of them. The tip of my tongue touches the edge of my top teeth. The, Tha, Then he moves on to the lips, where he says, وَمِن بَطْنِ الشَّفَةِ فَالْفَا مَعَ أَطْرَافِ الثَّنَايَا الْمُشْرِفَةِ. Fa is pronounced by taking the inside of the bottom lip, بَطْنِ الشَّفَةِ, the belly of the bottom lip, the inside, and pressing it against the edge of the top teeth. أطراف الثنايا المشرفة. If, F, Uf. The inside of my bottom lip is touching the edge of my top teeth. Then Ibn al-Jazari talks about the last set of makharij. He says, لِلشَّفَتَيْنِ, for the lips belong these three letters, al-waw, ba'un, mimu. The waw, the non-med waw, the ba and the meme all come from the lips. وَغُنَّةٌ, and غُنَّة مَخْرَجُهَا الْخَيْشُومُ. The ghunna comes out from the khayshum, which is the nose. Now, ghunna is not a letter, but Ibn al-Jazari still includes it with the makharij because it is something that requires you to use air inside of you to produce sound, which is the same as a makhraj. So he includes it here. He says, وَغُنَّةٌ مَخْرَجُهَا الْخَيْشُومُ. The ghunna comes out of the nose, and the ghunna only applies to two letters, the noon and the meme. So now we'll look at these letters in detail with a diagram for each. The first set, the three letters together are dal, ta, and ta. As we said before, we're taking the tip of the tongue and we're touching behind the top teeth, the two front top teeth. They're getting pushed up very close to where the edge of these top teeth are, where the roots of these teeth are. Id, it, it. This is where the tongue is hitting to pronounce this sound. Then we have the letters of safir. The tip of the tongue is going down to the bottom teeth, and the teeth are coming very close to each other, but they're not closing. So I get is, is. My tongue has gone down behind these bottom teeth, and there's air escaping between this gap in my teeth. Now we have the next set of three, the letters if, il, dhal, tha, and va. The tip of the tongue is touching the edge of these top teeth here. Top teeth here. And notice that if my tongue is touching the top here, there's no way I can confuse these letters with these letters over here. So people, they commonly make the mistake of confusing dhal and zai. They say zalika, allazina, azabun alim. This is incorrect because the dhal does not make this sound. What they're doing is they're putting their tongue at the bottom and creating a za sound. They need to put their tongue at the top of these top teeth here, the edge of these teeth, to pronounce a the. Alladhi, alladhina, dhalika, azabun alim. The same way I have the English word the book, this, that, that's the same sound that's pronounced and that's created. People also make the mistake of confusing the letter tha with sin. So they say, for example, naffasati fil uqad, not naffafati, they say naffasati. They put their tongue at the bottom and they created a sin sound. Tha is created with the edge of the tongue and the top teeth, the edge of the top teeth. Tha, tha, like the letter or like the word three. I have three dots at the top here, so I say tha, three, tha, tha. And then of course we have the va, which is also tip of the tongue, edge of the top teeth, and I make it fat to differentiate it from the, va, the. And we'll talk about that just now when we take the huruf of isti'la and the sifa of tafkhim. Then we have the letter fa. As we said, I'm taking the inside of my bottom lip and I'm touching the edge of the top teeth. If, fil ardi. Next, I have the letter waw, and we said that what's happening is these lips are coming together, and this is for the non-med waw. This is for the waw that does not have med, so not the letter oo, but if I say wa, we, woo, ow, ew, these are all non-med waws, and they created by the lips coming together. Wa, right? If my lip went back and it touched my teeth, I would get a v sound. Valahum, no. Wa, walahum, no teeth are involved at all. It's just the lips coming together. Then I have the letter ba, which is created by the lips coming together. Ab, ab, ib. And if I want to create a haraka, they're going to separate. Ba, u. Right? Ba with sukoon is created with the lips coming together. Ba with haraka is created by the lips separating. Then we have the letter mim, same thing as the ba, the lips come together. And I also have a ghunna aspect of mim. I cannot pronounce a mim without using air in my nose. If you try and say and you plug your nose, you're not going to be able to do it because the air is going to get blocked. So both mim and noon intrinsically have ghunna as part of their pronunciation. And as Ibn Jazari said, the ghunna comes out of the nose, which is the air being driven up through your throat, out through your nasal cavity to create a vibration sound. So that covers the 17 makhrajs, and we're going to organize them more easily now. So we take the 28 letters and we divide them over 17 makharij. The letters of mad come from the jawf. The letters hamza and ha come from aqsa al-halq. The letters ayn and ha come from wasat al-halq. The letters ghayn and kha come from adna al-halq. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, we have number 5, qaf, aqsa al-lisan. Then number 6, the letter kaf, aqsa al-lisani, slightly above or slightly below or slightly in front of the kaf. And then we have the 3 letters jim, sheen, and ya, not the mad ya, just a regular ya. All come from wasat al-lisan. Number 8, we have the bad, which comes from hafatay al-lisan, the 2 sides of the tongue. Then number 9, we have the lam, comes from the tip of the tongue, top of the mouth. The letter noon, also from the tip of the tongue, top of the mouth, and the letter ra come from the tip of the tongue and the top of the mouth. And some ulama put all of these 3, lam, noon, and ra, into one makhraj, but the predominant opinion is that they each have their own makhraj. And then number 12, we have the 3 letters ta, dal, and ta. They all share a makhraj, the tip of the tongue and the roots of the top teeth close to the gum line. Number 13, the 3 letters sad, sin, and zay, they also share the same makhraj, the tip of the tongue and the bottom teeth or the edge of the bottom teeth. Number 14, the letters dha, dhal, and tha, they also all share a makhraj, the tip of the tongue and the edge of the top teeth. Number 15, the letter fa comes from the inside of the bottom lip and the edge of the top teeth. The letters mim, ba, and waw all come from ash-shafatayn, come from the lips. And then we have the attribute of al-ghunna, which comes from the nose. So that covers the 17 makhraj of the letters, which Ibn al-Jazari covers in a few verses, which are relatively easy to memorize. Now we are going to go on to sifat al-huruf, the attributes of the letters. Because as we noticed just now, some letters come from the same place. Some letters such as sad, sin, and zay, they all come from the same place. So what makes them different? The letters ta, dal, and ta all come from the same place. So what makes them different? The thing that makes them different are their attributes. Ibn al-Jazari says, Babu sifat al-huruf, and he says, Sifatuha, the attributes of the letters are Jahrun, Warikhun, Mustafil, Munfatihun, Musmatatun. He just gave us 5 sifat. Jahr, Rikhu, Mustafil, Munfatih, Musmata. Now he's going to give us the opposites of these 5 ones he just mentioned. وَالضِّدَّ قُلْ, and the opposite are, or say, مَهْمُوسُهَا. So the opposite of jahr is hams. مَهْمُوسُهَا فَحَثَّهُ شَخْصٌ سَاكَتْ. These letters are the letter of hams. فَحَثَّهُ شَخْصٌ سَكَتْ. Hams is the opposite of jahr. The next sifa, shadiduha, shidda, the opposite of rikhu. Lafzu, ajid, qatin, bakat. They are put together in the phrase ajid, qatin, bakat. And then وَبَيْنَ رِخْوٍ وَالشَّدِيدِ. Between rakhawa and between shidda, there is another sifa called bayniya or called at-tawassut, which is in the phrase لِنْعُمَرْ. Then on to the next sifa, وَسَبْعُ عُلْوٍ. It's called isti'la, the opposite of istifala, and they are the letters خُصَّ ضَغْطٍ قِضْ حَصَرْ خُص ضَغْط قِضْ خُص ضغط قِضْ. These are the letters of isti'la. Then he goes on to the next sifa, which will be the opposite of infitah or munfatih. وَصَادُ ضَادٌ طَاءُ ظَاءٌ مُطْبَقَةٌ. This is called al-itbaq. It has 4 letters: صاد, ضاد, طاء, and ظاء. It is the opposite of infitah over here. Then on to the last one that has an opposite. وَفَرَّ مِنْ لُبِّ الْحُرُوفُ الْمُذْلَقَةِ. The letters of idlaq are farra min lub, and idlaq is the opposite of musmat or as-samt. So those are the 5 sifat that have opposites: jahr and hams, rikhu and shidda, and bayniya or tawassut is between them, mustafil and ulwin or istifal and isti'la, munfatih and mutbaq or al-infitah and al-itbaq, and then musmata and mudlaqa or as-samt and al-idlaq. Now these 3 verses are going to talk about sifat that don't have opposites. So he says the first sifa that doesn't have an opposite is safiruha. Remember we said the letters of safir above are sad, sin, and zay, and he says them here. Safiruha sadun wa zayun sinu. These 3 letters are the letters of safir. And then the next sifa, qalqalatun qutbu jadin. The letters of qalqala are qutbu jadin. The next sifa, واللين واو وياء سكينا وانفتح قبلهما. Lean are the letters of waw and ya if they have sukoon and the letter before them has a fatha. These are the 2 letters of lean. Then he says the next sifa, وَالْإِنْحِرَافُ صُحِّحَ فِي اللَّامِ وَالرَّا. And the sifa of inhiraf is found in the letters of lam and ra. وَبِتَكْرِيرٍ جُعِلْ. And takrir also is found in the letter ra. And then the last 2 sifat, وَلِلتَّفَشِّ الشِّينُ. The sifa of tafashi belongs to the sheen. ضَادًا istatil. And ضاد has the sifa of istitala. And we'll look at each of these sifat in detail. So to begin with, we're going to look at the attributes, the sifat that have opposites. As-sifat allati laha ضد. And they come in 5 pairs. Each letter in the Arabic language has to have a minimum of 5 sifat, 1 sifa from each of the 5 pairs we're going to look at. If it does not belong to one part of the pair, it automatically has to belong to the other one. So if I have a letter that does not belong to hams, it doesn't belong to fahattahu shakhsun sakat, automatically it has to belong to the letters of jahr. And so that gives each letter in the Arabic language a minimum of 5 sifat. So what are these 5 pairs that Ibn al-Jazari gave us? Al-jahru, and the opposite is al-hams. Next pair, al-shidda, and the opposite is al-rakhawa. And between them is something called al-bayniya or al-tawassut. Third pair is al-isti'la wal-istifal. 4th pair is al-itbaq and al-infitah. And then the 5th pair is al-idlaq wal-ismat. However, some scholars say that this sifa, or this pair here, al-idlaqu wal-ismatu, they actually don't have anything to do with pronunciation. They're just part of the science of sarf, to know whether a word is Arabic or not in origin. That's according to one opinion. Another opinion says that it refers to the speed with which the letters are pronounced, and we'll look at that in just a bit. So let's look at the first pair, al-jahru wal-hamsu. So we said the letters of hams are 10. Sakata fahathahu shakhsun, or fahathahu shakhsun sakat. And then the remaining 19 letters all belong to jahr. So what is hams and jahr? Hams refers to when the air continues to travel in your mouth after you pronounce the letter. Jahr is the opposite, where the airflow gets stopped once I pronounce the letter. So if I take the letter sin, for example, and I put sukoon on it and I pronounce it, I say as. See, I can continue the sound for an indefinite amount of time. It can continue on no matter how, as long as I still have air in my mouth, it can continue. But if I take the letter dal and I put sukoon on it, what happens? Ad. I can't make the air continue. The airflow has stopped. So that's the difference between hams and jahr. The next pair we're going to look at is shidda and rakhawa. The letters of shidda are ajid, qatin, bakat. And then between shidda and rakhawa, I have the letters lin, umar, and then all the remaining letters belong to rakhawa. So what is shidda? Shidda refers to when I pronounce the letter, the sound of it is sudden and abrupt. It stops. But rakhawa is where when I pronounce the letter, the sound of it continues for a little while after I pronounce it. So if I take something like a hamza and I say I put sukoon on it. See how the sound stops? It doesn't continue. But if I take a letter like fa and I put sukoon on it, f, the sound continues for a little bit. It doesn't just stop abruptly. And then between those two sifat of shidda and rakhawa, I have what's called tawassut or al-bayniyya. And this is where the letter is neither long nor short, but it's somewhere in between. So if I say, for example, ya'lamun, the ayn is not short and abrupt like a hamza, but it's not very long either. It's kind of in between. Ya'lamun. The next pair we're going to look at right now is isti'la and istifala. Isti'la refers to when a letter is high in the mouth and it is mufakhama. It is also fat. So I have 7 letters of isti'la. Khus, ضغط, qil. And then all of the remaining letters are going to be the flat letters in the mouth, the letters that are not high in the mouth. So the sifa of isti'la can be said to refer to when a letter is round and fat. The opposite is istifal, where the letter is skinny and thin in the mouth. So compare, for example, qaf versus ka. Qa, ka. One of them is round, one of them is flat. We can also say that the letters of isti'la, khus, ضغط, qid, all of them are always mufakhama. They always have the sifa of tafkhim. And the remaining letters are always from the letters of tarqiq, the skinny letters, with the exception of alif, lam, and ra. So the letters of isti'la, they are always called the letters of tafkhim, and the letters of istifala are always letters of tarqiq, with the exception of alif, lam, and ra, which have their own circumstances where they will be pronounced fat or skinny. And later on in the poem, Ibn al-Jazari will explain what are the cases where ra is fat or skinny, what are the cases where lam is fat or skinny, as well as alif. The next pair we have is al-itbaq and al-infitah. We said the letters of itbaq are sad, bad, ta, and ra, and everything else belongs to infitah, which is the skinny or flat letters. Itbaq refers to when the letter gets stuck to the top of the mouth during pronunciation. So if I say id, it, il, is, the letter goes up and it gets stuck for a bit. My tongue gets stuck for a little bit at the top of my mouth. But the infitah letters, they don't stick. They hit the spot where they're supposed to hit and they release. So compare, for example, ba versus da. Ba versus da. The tongue has to stick for a little bit here, but the tongue releases very quickly for the da. So that took we took 4 of the 5 sifat, or 4 of the 5 pairs that have opposites. And as we said before, some of them say that the last pair, idlaq and ismat, they're not part of pronunciation. They just have to do with sarf. So if a word has one of the letters of idlaq, farra min lub, it's a pure Arabic letter or pure Arabic word. And if it doesn't have one of those letters in its origin, then it is from a foreign word, but it does not have any practical effect, they say. So now we're going to look at the sifat that don't have opposites. These are just individual sifat. And they are a total of 7, or if you want to add ghunna, you get 8. الصفير القلقلة اللين الانحراف التكرير التفشي الاستطالة and الغنة. So look at them one by one. The first is as-safir, which is the whisper that is created when I pronounce the 3 letters sad, sin, and zai as a result of air escaping between the gap in the top and bottom teeth. The airflow continues if I say is, yes, and this is like a slight whisper for these letters. This is intrinsic to these 3 letters. The next sifa is qalqala, which literally means to rock or to echo something. Like whenever you have a pot that's boiling and it's shaking back and forth, this is like qalqala. This is the reverberation that is created when the tongue hits the letter and it rapidly removes itself from that place. If I say ito, ito, my tongue hits the place, and if it removes itself quickly, it creates an echo. Id, id, ij, ij. If my tongue just went up and it stuck to that place, then I would not create qalqala. If I say it and I don't remove my tongue quickly, I get no qalqala. If I say, for example, yubsirun, yubsirun, I close my lips and I don't open them quickly, I don't get that qalqala. If I open my lips quickly, I get qalqala. Yubsirun, yubsirun. And here are some examples. يقضي, يطعم, يبصرون, وتجعلون, يدخلون, لينفقوا, ولا تشطط واهدنا. If I didn't echo my tongue or it just stuck to the top, I would say it like ولا تشطط واهدنا. There's no qalqala there. فانصب وإلى, فانصب وإلى, فانصب وإلى, يخرج من, قد أفلح. That is the sifa of qalqala. Next we have al-leen, which refers to the waw or ya that has sukun and fatha before them, like khawf, qawm, bayt, quraish. This just refers to the ease with which these letters are pronounced. Aw, ay. Al-leen literally means something that is easy without any hardship in it. So these letters are easy to pronounce. Then we have the sifa of inhiraf. There's a difference of opinion as to what exactly inhiraf is referring to here. Inhiraf, according to what Dr. Ayman Suwaid has said in his book, which is the book we're relying on right now, is when the sound of the letter as it's coming up through the mouth, it changes its path. ينحرف عن طريقه. It slips off to a different side. And that's for lam and ra. So when the sound of the ra is coming up the tongue, it's supposed to come out both of these sides, but the way the tongue is positioned blocks it. So it has to yanharif, it has to switch its path and come out the middle of the tongue. Same thing for lam. He says as the sound is coming up the mouth, the air has nowhere to escape at the tip of the tongue. So instead the sound goes around. The airflow goes around the tongue to pronounce a il sound. This is according to the opinion of Dr. Ayman Suwaid. Another opinion is that inhiraf is referring to the fact that lam and ra are very close to each other. so they may accidentally slip into each other. You may be pronouncing an il, but it might accidentally get converted into an r or the opposite as well. These are two opinions as to what inhiraf means. As we said, it refers to the sound of the letter changing the path of its makhraj when you pronounce them, according to one opinion. Then we have the sifa of takrir. Takrir is where the R, the Ra, is vibrated more than once to create more than one R sound. In English, we would call this the rolling R. If I say fir, for example, or in the word fir'aun, but I continue to vibrate my tongue, fir'aun, fir. This is multiple vibrations. This is called takrir or takrar of the Ra. It's true that this is an intrinsic part of the letter Ra, but it should not be done excessively. You should not do it 3, 4, 6 times. At the most, it should just be 2 times. Don't say Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is too much. And if you don't do it at all, this is also incorrect. Don't say Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. There needs to be a little bit of rolling. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So this is the intrinsic sifa of Ra in the Arabic language. Then we have the sifa of tafashi, which only applies to sheen. When I pronounce the sheen, as we said, the tongue goes up and touches the middle part of the mouth. And also it requires airflow between the teeth. This is tafashi, ish, ish, to create a sheen sound. And as we said just now, it is an intrinsic part of the letter sheen, but it should not be done to an excessive amount. And the last sifa that we have is the sifa of istitala. Istitala refers to the fact that when I pronounce the letter bad, my tongue moves forward in my mouth as a result of the air pressure. It starts at the back and it slowly moves towards the front. It covers the entire length of the tongue. The tongue starts at the back and it moves along the top of the mouth when I pronounce bad. You can feel your tongue moving forward slightly. This is also a very important sifa of bad, and this is what makes the bad different from the letter ta and the letter dal, for example. So as we said, every letter has to have a minimum of 5 sifat, 1 from each of the 5 pairs with opposites. Some letters may have 1 additional sifa. Like if I take sheen, I see it has 1 from each of the 5 pairs, and then I also add tafashi. If I take qaf, it has 1 from each of the 5 pairs, and then I add qalqala. The only letter that has 7 sifat is the letter ra, because it has 1 from each of the 5 pairs, and then it also has inhiraf and takrir. All the remaining letters either have 5 or they have 6 sifat if I add 1 from the extra sifat to them. With that comes to the end of our lesson for today. We will stop at the bab of sifat al-huruf. Inshallah, next time we will be covering the chapters that mainly concern tajweed of huruf, such as tafkhim and tarqiq, and also writing the letter dha in the Quran. And inshallah, this will be one of 4 classes. We have 3 more and we will finish the poem, inshallah azza wa jalla.